are now recording. So welcome everybody. This is our second Champions of Employment webinar for 2021. And if you weren't able to join us last month, a little glimpse into why we started the Champions of Employment. So in the St. Louis area, I've been working with a number of support coordinators from each of our St. Louis regional office teams, providing some mentoring and guidance into coordinating employment supports and best practices around what support coordinators can be doing to provide their individuals with employment options. So during the summer, with all the changes, we started talking about how we can take this concept of what I've been doing in St. Louis and make it statewide so that we can reach even more support coordinators from across the state and provide that mentoring and guidance and just helping each of us to share best practices and scale up our efforts in helping more people with disabilities become employed. So that was our concept of the Champions of Employment. So we've started it off 2021. This is our second webinar. So you'll notice at the end, you'll get a survey. We definitely recommend that you complete that survey. That feedback is invaluable to us. We are using that feedback to help make this even more beneficial for you all. So we do listen to what you have to say about how we can make this better. So with that in mind, today's topic, we wanted to focus on finding solutions during the COVID-19 pandemic. So, Stephen, you want to start us off with the poll question here?
Yeah, this is the first poll question.
Yep.
What is your role? So I'm going to give those ones you can choose from: support coordinator, service provider, regional office employee, like UR, PR, CLC, etc. Other state employees, VR, DHEWD, DBH, RSB, etc. Individual and family member or other. So if you will choose one of those, and then we'll give you about 2 minutes to respond, and then Sandy will tell you what the results of that is.
And Heike, it looks like maybe the poll has stopped. Do you have the results for us? All right, so it looks like the majority of people are support coordinators. So over half mentioned that they are support coordinator. We have about 6 individuals who are service providers. About 3 individuals said other. So thank you. That allows us to get a feel for who's in the audience. So now, Stephen, you want to talk to us about our recap from January? Stephen, we're not hearing you.
You hear me now?
I can hear you now. Okay, take it
so let me start over. So this is a recap from our January webinar that we done. So you can see that there's a pie graph, and the first one is changes in interest and employment. So the first one says hard to tell is 31%, 50% is yes, and no 19%. Then the other pie graph shows found useful tools and resources to use during the pandemic. And it says yes is 41%. No, yeah, yes 41%. No 34%, and not sure 25%. So those are the results that we got in January. So that's kind of one of the reasons we like to have a survey, because that kind of helps us show how things are going, and like Sandy said earlier, what we need to maybe improve on.
So as you can see, just from our poll responses during last month's webinar, about 60%, so just under 60% said that they had not found any useful tools or resources in having discussions around employment with people during this pandemic. So that is really why Stephen and I wanted to focus on that topic this month. We really wanted for each of you all to feel like you could walk away knowing some kind of tip or strategy or a resource that you could use today in having those discussions around employment. And from the feedback from the surveys, a lot of you told us that's what you want in these future webinars. You said, we want to have a tool or a resource, some kind of takeaway that we can put into action and be able to use. So that's what we wanted to deliver for you today. What you'll find out, hopefully, kind of a little interesting tidbit. As Stephen and I were planning for today's topic, both of us were thinking about going in a certain way. We were focusing on trying to find that one tool that you all can use that's going to be like the, aha, it's the holy grail. But what we found in having discussions with other support coordinators around the state is there's not just one tool. And we'll talk about it more, but it really focuses on the strategies that you guys are using. So you'll probably see that today, that we focus a little bit more on the strategies than the tools. And the reason being is when we talk to you guys about what you're doing and what's leading to increased interest in employment, that's what we heard back. It was more in what you were doing, not so much what you were using. So we're going to go forth with a few more poll questions just to kind of see where we're all at. So I'm going to let you introduce the poll question and the options, and then hopefully I'll be able to report back on the responses. Stephen, we can't hear you. Okay, I'm still not hearing you, Stephen. Okay, I'm not sure what's happened to Stephen, but in the interest of keeping us moving along, hopefully, Heike, you can kind of find out what happened with Stephen, and I'll just move forward with the poll question. So this poll question, we're wanting to know what tools and strategies are you currently using? So you have 5 different options. Yes, it's kind of small. Are you using the Return to Work and Community Activity Tool, or the State Employment Leadership Network Guide for Conversations? Are you using peer-to-peer support, influence, or motivational interviewing techniques? So, or maybe it's another tool or strategy that you're using. Feel free to choose as many of these options that you're using and go ahead and do that poll.
Sandy? I'm back
I
on.
can hear you now, Stephen.
Yeah, I just want to let you know, some reason I got cut off. I'm back.
Okay, it looks like our poll has now stopped. Heike, can you show us the results? All right, so it looks like the majority of you are using other tools and strategies. About 4 of you said you're using the return to work and activities tool that we developed this summer. Nobody said that they're using the SELN guide for conversations. About 5 of you said that you're using motivational interviewing. 7 said using peer-to-peer supports. But again, like I said, the majority, 16 of you said that you're using other tools and strategies. So, all right, moving on to the next question then.
Okay, the next poll question. Have you had any success in getting individuals interested in employment during the pandemic? So if you would just answer yes, no, or not sure, then we'll give you about another 2 minutes to answer that one.
Okay, it looks like our poll has ended. And interesting, so when we asked if you're having success, over half of you, so 17, said yes, you are having success. About 6 said no, and 3 said, I'm not sure yet. I'm still waiting to see. So, what we'd like to do now, of those 17 of you who've said, we want you to put in the chat box what you think is leading to that success. Is it a tool you're using? And if so, what is that tool? Or maybe it's strategies that you're using. And again, if you think it's the strategies that are leading to that success, let us know what strategies you're using. However, some of you might say, no, it's more something that the service provider is doing. Okay, that's okay. Let us know. So we're going to give you a minute or 2 to kind of let us know what you think is leading to that success and getting people interested in an employment. Okay, so I'm seeing somebody said clients are ready to get out of the house and just do something. So we're sick of COVID. Yes, that COVID exhaustion. It's time to get out and move and do something. All right, so great. Yeah, individual who's just motivated. People are just motivated to get a job. So yeah, we're seeing again, the trend is it seems like that people are just kind of motivated. They're showing that interest now because it's like, yeah, I'm done with being stuck at home and I want to get out. I want to be out and about and doing things. Okay. Oh, I love this continued conversation. So continuing to talk about it, sharing stories of other people getting jobs and the enjoyment that they're getting out of working. So just constantly talking about employment. Okay. So thank you guys. Love what I'm hearing, love what I'm seeing. Keep it up. Now I'm going to give it over to Stephen to kind of talk about what we learned as we planned for today's topic, and he's going to introduce our first guest speaker. So Stephen?
Okay, our first guest speaker is Kayla Yeager. She's a support coordinator at the Kansas City Regional Office. So she's going to kind of tell us what her experiences are, what she uses with her individuals to talk about employment. So I will let her go ahead and do that at this time. All right, Kayla.
Hi, thank you. So kind of like a lot of what I have success with is a lot of actually what's on this slide. So my strategy is more a strategy than a tool. And really what I've had success with is just continuing to always have that conversation about employment. I think what's really important is even though sometimes I'll have parents look at me like I'm kind of silly to even ask, but we do those annual planning meetings and we get to that employment section. And for me, no matter if it's, we're working with people on a broad spectrum of abilities and needs. So no matter if they are, medically fragile and total care, or if they're fairly independent, I'm always bringing up employment as a potential resource and service for them, depending on what their goals and interests and abilities are. So I think just always having those conversations and not excluding anyone, because like I said, even though sometimes parents look at me like I'm silly to ask, they're like, well, my child's in a wheelchair and this, that, and the other, that doesn't mean that we can't work together if employment is something that's a goal for them now or in the future, to find a way to make that happen, whether it's waivered employment services or a referral to voc rehab or a different, resource. So, and also in those quarterly conversations I'm having with people, if I'm hearing them have interests to be more independent, or, like a lot of people are saying, they're just tired of being at home. I always bring up, well, are you interested in working? Is that something for me to share more information about, and how, maybe we can take steps to make that happen. So just really in that conversation, and then kind of the continued success that I've seen specifically through COVID, really what I try to do is just keep an open dialogue with providers, with the specific employment staff that my individuals are working with, just to make sure, and of course my individual themselves, to make sure that progress is being made and that I'm getting kind of the full picture of what's going on, and that their needs are getting met and kind of what direction they're headed. So I always try to make that dialogue and communication open with the service providers, so that I can be of assistance to them in their process and success with employment as well.
All right, thank you, Kayla. So, we're doing pretty good on time right now. So I want to kind of ask our attendees, looking at this list, is there anything that jumps out at you that you think we, or yourself or your teams, that we could be doing better? Something that kind of struck you as, oh, I'm not doing that and I could be doing that.
If you could, can I jump in, or do you want me to
Sure,
put it in the
Kayla.
chat box? Okay. One of the things, I think I'm always trying to be conscious of it, but addressing barriers, I think sometimes maybe we've all been in those situations where we see how employment could be beneficial for the individual, or how it could be possible for the individual. And sometimes there are barriers in the way that the guardian may feel, or the parents or family or the individual themselves may feel is too large to overcome for them to have successful employment. And I think that's something that I personally always need to be kind of conscious of, and not just necessarily leaving the conversation there, and you know, addressing that and moving past it, and you know, making sure that I'm doing my part to tell them how it could still be an option for them, and kind of push them a little bit if that's appropriate.
So that's a good one, Kayla. Some of what I've been seeing in the chat box. So people are saying, you know, talking to people about whether they want to achieve a change in their level of employment. So kind of, you've been working, do you want any change? Do you want to work more hours? Do you want a different job? So looking for those changes. Some individuals have said planning for future employment with the really young. So, and I know sometimes that can be a difficult discussion. You know, you're talking to a parent of a child who's 3, 4, 5, 6 years of age, employment's way off into the future. And you're kind of like going, so let's talk about employment. And the parent's looking at you like, my kid's in elementary school or preschool. Why are we talking about employment now? But setting that foundation, talking about the future and what's going to be needed to get there, can really help set somebody up for that future success. We often talk about all those soft skills that are being developed from a very early age, that responsibility, taking care of their own belongings, taking care of yourself, just trying to be more independent, dressing yourself, brushing your teeth, taking care of your dishes after eating dinner. All of those can help instill those good work behaviors that are needed once they become 18, 19, 20 years of age. So even those interpersonal skills, getting along with their friends, again, is going to translate to getting along with coworkers later on. Somebody mentioned building partnerships with employers. You're right. I'm constantly telling support coordinators that there are employers out there that will hire, and they're like, well, who? Anybody. All you've got to do is you've got to make the case for why this person makes a good fit for that job. So I think that's the thing. If you can show the benefits, the strengths that this person brings to the job, that employer most likely is going to be willing to give them a chance. One of the ones that kind of struck out to me was treating COVID like any other health and safety concern. You know, we all know that we're in the middle of a pandemic, and we've all been talking about, you know, COVID protocols and how do we keep our staff safe? How do we keep ourselves safe? Do we get the vaccine? What's that rollout looking like for our own organization? So we're all dealing with COVID issues that sometimes, you know, it's very easy to think we're in a different time and age, you know, it's different circumstances. But what I found really interesting is the ones that are really finding success at having those employment discussions are really treating COVID like any other health or safety concern. It's not a new and different pandemic, but it's just kind of like, you know what? If we were talking about how do you keep yourself safe on the workplace? How do you keep yourself from being taken advantage of? What precautions do we need to take? What supports do we need to be put in place? How do we help you be safe at the work site? Same thing when we're talking about COVID. It's just kind of like, okay, here's a health and safety concern that we need to plan supports for. So, awesome.
Sandy,
Yeah, go ahead, take it, Stephen.
I was just going to ask if how support coordinators feel that working with a provider, do they find that helps them, helps their individuals with getting employed? Or does anybody have any thoughts on that? I know Kayla had told me that that's something that she tries to do, is work closely with the providers, and that seems to help the individuals with getting employment, to having that good relationship with the provider.
So things I'm seeing in the chat box, team approach, always best. If client is already working with a service provider, just having encouragement from that service provider has really been very beneficial. And just making sure everyone's working towards the same goal. One of the comments made earlier was kind of Griffin and Hammis is doing as far as their approach to employment. And Griffin Hammis is known for their customized employment approach. And on the state level, we are really working to try and teach some of our service providers some of those strategies that Griffin Hammis uses in their customized employment approach, so that we can also incorporate that kind of mentality, those strategies into our employment services as well. So definitely. Close relationship with providers is very important. Can't agree more. You know, lots of opportunities do develop from those partnerships. So moving on, one of the strategies that I learned from a provider down in the southeast corner of the state in Perry County is using employment as a means to achieve an outcome. Now, for those of you that have a major or a background in education or psychology, this is going to look very familiar to you. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and what this TCM provider has done is they've really gone to great lengths to show support coordinators that employment can be used to achieve each level of those hierarchy of needs. So, and in talking to some support coordinators out of Stoddard County, there were some really great examples that the support coordinator had. And unfortunately, at the last minute, due to the weather, she was not able to join us today. But I think you guys really would have loved hearing her talk about this. She had an individual that wanted to learn how to play guitar. And what she did is she used that goal of wanting to learn how to play guitar and tied it to employment. So she used employment as a strategy to achieve that outcome. So it was basically, this person wanted to learn how to play guitar. Well, first thing he needed was a guitar. He didn't have one. So she's like, how are you going to get a guitar? You don't have one. You need money to get a guitar. Well, how are you going to get money? Oh, got to get a job to get money to save up to buy a guitar. And then, okay, now that you've got the guitar, now what? Oh, you need lessons to actually learn how to play it. Okay, how are you going to afford the lessons? Oh, you still need money. Okay, how are you going to get the money? Oh, you got to get a job. That was one example. Another one, she had an individual that wanted an iPad. Again, not interested in employment, but wanted an iPad. And it was, well, how are you going to afford an iPad? How are you going to get one? Got to have money. How are you going to get the money? Got to work. So now with both of these individuals, it wasn't just decided in one conversation. So it wasn't like they sat down at the ISP meeting and these individuals said, okay, here's my goal. And she said, okay, how are you going to get the money for that? And they all decided, well, work it is. Let's do this. It was several conversations. So it was that continuing to talk about employment and talk about that to get these people on board with, okay, all right, one way I'm going to achieve this is through employment. Now, Kayla, you had a similar but slightly different situation. I think with the individual that you were telling me about this morning, employment was the end goal, so it wasn't a strategy to achieve something, but the way that you guys looked at employment and the options for this person met several of these different needs. So Kayla, I'm going to let you talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have an individual who, like she said, employment was the conversation. However, I think she also started community integration services as well. So I think there was a broader conversation about her needs as a young adult and kind of what she wanted to work on, as well as the, employment benefits. So what ended up happening is she loves animals, and so she actually got an interesting opportunity to work. If any of you are familiar with the Kansas City area, we have a business down here called Bar K, and it is a dog park, bar, restaurant, all rolled into one. It's one of my favorite places, as you can imagine. So she is able to work there, have competitive employment, and then prior to working, kind of, I think what spurred this whole conversation of employment and community integration, she graduated from high school. She's a young adult in her early 20s, and she really wasn't socializing with anyone outside of her family. She really wasn't leaving the house unless with family on errands or outings and things like that. So she was looking for independence. She was looking for that sense of belonging and friendship. She also needs a little assistance with like social interaction and social skills. And so really through getting a job at Bar K, which is so directly tied to one of her biggest interests, as you can imagine, people who work at Bar K are also big animal lovers. I don't think you can work and clean up after animals all day if you're not an animal lover. So she has been able to create those work relationships, which really have turned into friendships. And she goes on her days off and hangs out with coworkers, and also, has made relationships with some of the owners that come in and bring their dogs. And she's, learning problem solving and independence. And again, biggest thing is that sense of self-esteem, building those social connections and that sense of belonging. She's kind of found through employment a group of people that she really connects with really well. So that's been super successful for her, and that confidence she's also building as an employee has kind of taken her, further into exploring other opportunities and other social situations as well. So it's been fun to watch her kind of blossom in that way.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Kayla. Just a few things I wanted to point out regarding the individual that wanted to learn how to play guitar. This coordinator was telling me that when asked about employment, this person had a very limited idea of what employment was. And this person said that he wanted to own his own business so he could wear a suit and tie every day. And that struck me as so interesting, that, how many individuals do we know on our caseloads that have a limited idea of what employment is and might come up with some of the things we're kind of like, okay, that's not going to happen. But again, it's kind of like, okay, what can we do? And luckily we have an option. We can connect them with career planning so that they can get an idea of all of the different employment options that might be available to them, so that maybe they can find something that is more tailored to their interests and abilities and needed conditions. The other thing that was really interesting with this individual is after getting connected with employment services, this person has also decided that he needs to hold himself to a higher level of accountability and cannot engage in problematic behaviors because he has to set a standard. He has to exhibit good behaviors for others to emulate. And that's another thing that kind of stuck out at me too. How many of us basically sit there and go, okay, we've got to address these behavioral issues before we can move into employment. But yet here was somebody that by moving into employment, it helped address some behavior issues. So just a few things that kind of stuck out at me. I want to move us along and talk about addressing those barriers. And how many of us haven't heard fear of losing one's Social Security benefits as a potential barrier? So I have Tanya Hudson from Pulaski County on with us, and she's going to walk us through how her team uses that form letter from Social Security, showing how one's SSI is reduced by work income. So Tanya, walk us through how you use this example and other ones like this.
Hi, yeah, we have a client that, has a part-time job. So every month he sends in his stubs to Social Security. And then every month he gets one of these statements showing what is pretty much how they calculated his income, how they reduced it. And we can talk to our clients and tell them to go to, the DB 101, and we can explain to them how they don't take, it's not dollar for dollar. They remove from your, SSI. It's very hard for them to see that. So this client in particular has been giving us his monthly statements, and you can see this is the most current one from February of 2021. And it really kind of helps to be able to show this as an example. And it has none of his personal information on it, but it shows, his wages, how they reduced it. And so he brought home actually $455, but they only counted 185 of that. So at the end of the month, even though his SSI was reduced, he still brought home more than if he had not a job. And that has become really helpful to be able to show that to them in black and white and not just be able to explain it as a concept. So this has been valuable for us quite a bit.
All right, thanks. I know if you happen to have it too, Monopoly money also goes a long way. So sometimes just seeing the numbers on a piece of paper doesn't really resonate for individuals. So having Monopoly money and basically maybe starting off giving them that $794 in Monopoly money, then asking them to make some decisions with that. Okay, how much is rent? Pay that. Okay, how much do you need for food? Okay, now let's talk about your wants. And maybe seeing by the time they get to the wants, it's like there's very little money left, if any. And then maybe talking about, okay, what if you could work? What would you like to work? How many hours? Figure out what their wages would be, and then using this formula, kind of figure out how their SSI would be reduced. Now give them the Monopoly money based on that. Here's what you would get in work. Here's what you would get in SSI, and then kind of go through those same kind of questions. How much you got to pay for rent? How much you got to pay for food, utilities? Okay, now let's talk about some wants. And individuals can see, oh, wow, I've got a little bit more money now to go around and possibly address some of those wants that I have. So now, another thing that I learned from our friends in Perry County is talking about informed choice. And interesting with informed choice, it's ensuring that people have that frame of reference. So one of the support coordinators in Perry County, she would constantly be asking people, hey, do you want a job in the community? Do you want to work out in the community? And she wasn't getting too many people saying, yeah, that's what I want to do. And what dawned on her as she became more familiar with informed choice is that maybe these individuals that she was asking that question, they didn't know what she meant by, do you want to work out in the community? They didn't have any concept of what she was asking. So she started asking about, well, where do you like to go? What do you like to do? And if the people said, well, I like to eat at Burger King, or I like to go to the movies, then she used that to then ask, well, would you like to work there? So using something that they already had an idea of, I like to go to this place. I know what this place is. She then turned it around and asked about employment using that frame of reference that they had. And she found that got more positive results, just making sure that she was tying it to something that they knew about. So I know you're not going to be able to read this. So let's see here. And I am not having any luck. So I am going to quickly try and type this website into the chat box so that we can kind of go to it and check it out. Okay. Let's see. There we go. Now seeing that website that I just took us to. So this is the Institute for Community Inclusion. Our own Nick Holtz, who is one of our subject matter experts with our Employment First Missouri. He was one of the co-authors of this article. So I'm going to take us through to the charts. And what I want to point out is we all run into objections with employment. Some way along the line, somebody's gonna have some concerns. It could be the individual, could be the individual's guardian, it may be a family member, or it could even be a service provider. So if somebody is getting ISL supports, residential supports, it might be the residential provider with some concerns. So messing up benefits, concerned about safety, missing friends if they currently are in a workshop or a day program and you're talking about employment. Sometimes that fear, trying something different. We all have that. You know, that fear of what if the job doesn't last? You know, we also have that fear of failure. One thing I often think about with the fear of failure, because we've all experienced failure. And I had a teacher tell me that fail really just stands for future attempt in learning. So that's all it is. And if you look at that as it being an attempt in learning, then it's not as scary. It's not as bad if it doesn't work out. It was a learning experience. So, but what I like about this is this gives you ideas of how can you address some of those concerns. So like somebody who's like, I miss friends. And you can talk about how, you can still keep those friends, make new friends. One of the things that you could even suggest is why not look for a job outside of your day program hours so that you can continue to participate in day program activities and have a job on top of that. Maybe working weekends, maybe working some evenings, different hours. So that's one of the things that I wanted to show you guys is that this chart could be pretty handy in just familiarizing yourself with it to have discussions with those common objections. real quick, because I don't want you guys to just be hearing from me. Tanya, Kayla, do you have anything you want to add about using this chart?
This is Tanya. I do like the chart, and I think it definitely kind of puts it in front of us and us as support coordinators to give us those extras ideas. And we're always facing, well, I can't work, right? You know, it sounds scary, all that stuff. So it kind of gives us, you know, these are some answers. This is a way to approach it. I think it's a great tool.
Thanks, Tanya. So I'm going to stop here. The steps to ensure that we're making sure that people are getting that informed choice. So, you know, just kind of like what we talked about, providing that information about the benefits of working in integrated settings. So just talking about those, what does work bring you? And looking at that Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Making sure that we're facilitating visits. So don't forget, we've got career planning. So individuals that aren't sure that they want to work, this can be a great opportunity to expose them to the different options. So just allowing them to go out and experience, see it for themselves, because maybe they don't have that frame of reference yet that they need. So using those peer-to-peer discussions, we haven't really talked about it much, but, you know, using the experiences of others who have succeeded in employment and can talk about what it's meant for them, the benefits that they've received from working and how much they like working, and using that to share with other people. Again, from my friends in Stoddard County, one of the things that I heard from them is they've got a service provider that basically has developed this work crew, this group employment situation. And individuals seeing others go to work every day, just leaving the day program and going to work, they're kind of like, I want to do that. Hey, how do I get connected with that? So getting to see other people actually engaging in work created that interest for others to want to go to work. So addressing any of those objections. So again, kind of using looking at that chart that we just reviewed, identifying and addressing those objectives. So actively addressing those barriers. And then, of course, as you guys have mentioned, regularly revisiting that decision. So constantly talking about employment. We know that it's that constant conversation around employment that is sometimes what helps most of us kind of get off that fence and make a decision to do something different. So I'm going to stop sharing that. At least I thought I was. Hold on. Okay, so now back to our slideshow. So Stephen, I'm going to let you talk about where to find some of these useful tools.
Okay, so as you can see on the screen, we have some other tools that you can go to that will help you when working with individuals about employment. So the first one is saying charting, the live tool, link course tools. Then there's the link to that. Then the other one is return to work and community activity tool. Another link, and then ICI COVID-19 publications, the link for that one. SELN guide for conversations, and the link. ICI brief on informed choice, and the link for that one. Informed choice tools from other states, Minnesota, and the link to go to that one. New Jersey, and Virginia, and both of those links for those. So using these will be very helpful, I think, in working with your individuals and talking about employment. These are, some tools that will be very helpful. So hopefully you will try some of these and be successful.
So we did have a question in the chat box asking, how do we address complacency in individuals? So parent or guardian may want that individual to have a job, but the person themselves, they're apathetic. They're kind of indecisive, not really for or against it. So Kayla, Tanya, do you have any thoughts? How do you address that?
Generally, for me at least, I do kind of take it seriously because I have had individuals in the past that we've set up services for, and then they've been apathetic about them, and it's I don't want to call it a waste, but it's been, more difficult than it needed to be to make progress with it. And so I do kind of address that part of it, that we want the individual to be an engaged and involved part of that. But I think, again, it's just a continued conversation. So I'll usually try to, address the guardian's wants and needs, and then kind of put them in perspective for the individual, and, help to make them see maybe a different perspective from an outsider. Not, sometimes guardians, parents can just be like, you need to get a job, and they're tired of hearing that. So I kind of try to spin it in a way that's like, you could have more money, if you have these certain interests, these are the types of maybe jobs or skills that we could work on through services, and just readdressing, and they may come around to it or they may not. In my experience, at least, from what I've dealt with.
Tanya, do you have anything you want to add on that one?
Sorry, I had a hard time unmuting myself. Yeah, I mean, we do run into that. We run into the ones that just don't want to work, or tell us their only interest is playing video games all day. And it's very difficult sometimes to encourage them. And, we try to present it to, well, we all have to work. If we can work, we should work. And, that we try to name people in our lives and in their lives that we all have jobs. And, what benefit those jobs, of course, bring to us being productive members of society, those kind of things. And, we try to point that out, that we can all contribute something. But it can be difficult when you have the ones that are very just dead set against, nope, I'm not working, my check's fine and I'm good. So that's one of those things that, we just kind of keep slowly bringing it back up and just keep talking about it at each meeting, and letting them, I've tried to do some peer one-on-one, letting them see where maybe some of their peers are working and enjoying it, and getting to earn a little bit more money buying the things they want to buy, those kind of things, and getting to meet new people. So we just kind of slowly keep making that an every time conversation. But at the end of the day, it is their choice. So sometimes it can be difficult, but we just always tell them, well, it's part of our plan. It's something that we have to ask. So let's discuss it for a few minutes. And we just always keep trying to bring it up to them.
Thank you, Tanya. So we haven't really talked about it during this webinar, and it will be a future topic that we hope to present about, but using strategies for motivational interviewing too. So just kind of asking the question on a scale of 1 to 5, how interested are you in possibly wanting to? And maybe somebody who's kind of really not interested, they might say 1. And then you could ask, well, what would it take to get you to a 3 or a 4, or get you closer to that 5? And just hearing what they have to say about what it might take to get them more motivated, more interested, and then maybe following up on that. So if it's something that, they were kind of like, well, if I knew more people who were working, or, I saw more friends that were actually making a lot of money, I might be more interested. Okay, then can we then connect them to some peers and use some of that peer-to-peer support or that peer-to-peer influence to help them get more interested. So just a thought. We're going to move on here. So we want to kind of give you a little teaser, some more things to come. So we have a support coordinator toolkit that is in the making. It is being developed with our partnership through UMKC. So hopefully sometime this year, we'll see that come out and you'll be hearing more about that. Also, I'm sure you guys have already been hearing a lot about the new case management system that is currently in development. So I think that is supposed to come out later this year around the end of 2021. So we just kind of want to make sure you guys are aware of those projects in development. So more to come out on that. Stephen, you want to tell us about our future topics for the next 3 months?
Yes, for the next month, March the 10th, called Looking to the Future, Continuing Promising Practices Beyond the Pandemic. And then on April 14th, the Importance of Employment Planning, Self-Advocates Perspective. And then on May the 12th, Overview of Employment Services. So those are things that we're looking at for the future topics. So hopefully you guys will be able to join in those, hopefully in the future.
So we had another question come in the chat box. Somebody wants to know, how do you support families that are scared of COVID and don't allow the consumer to work because of it? So Tanya, Kayla, I'll let you take the first stab.
I will say at this point, I know to a certain point last year, I had families concerned about that. And so some of my individuals, whether in employment services or not, took some time off of work, but I think everyone is back to work now. I don't know if Tanya, if she has more specific experience with dealing with that. But I just think, I mean, I understand that's a difficult thing because you want to be respectful of how they're feeling and all the craziness of the world. But I think you have to gauge too how much that is potentially holding the individual back from progressing. So I think maybe just my suggestion, or if I was in that situation, would just be to address all of the precautions, all of the, or depending on what type of work or what stage they're at in the employment process, some things may be a concern and some things may not be a concern. If they're only at the career planning stage or job development, then they aren't necessarily going to be around a bunch of people, or, the situation can kind of be controlled a little bit differently. So I think it kind of depends, but yeah.
Tanya, do you have anything you want to add there? I'm sorry, Kayla, didn't mean to cut you off there.
Oh, no, it's okay. I was just going to say, I think the point earlier about treating it like another health and safety concern and just kind of going through what that individual is going to need to follow precautions and what precautions are in place is kind of the basics of what you have to do, I guess.
I agree with Kayla. We do a lot of that. Just kind of, what does this individual need? What do we need to keep them safe? So it's like if they're going out to the community at any time. And then if they're still pretty adamant about not going out and doing those job searches, then, we try to suggest, okay, let's go back and do a little bit more prep work. Let's do, some more of our interviewing skills and filling out paperwork and those kind of things. And, doing a little bit of role playing, a little bit, that kind of stuff. And keep those skills going until we're ready to go out and get into the community and start actually looking for the job.
So thank you. One thing I would add is you look at what we're dealing with. So a lot of us have moved to working remotely during this pandemic. So it would be thinking about it in that perspective for that individual. What conditions need to be met for that family to feel more comfortable with their loved one working during this pandemic? And maybe they might be completely open to, okay, if this person can work from home, yeah, we're fine with that. And then maybe do we need to do some career planning to look at what kind of current options exist for remote working that this person might be able to do. So just some thoughts. So I know we are now over time, so we're going to quickly go through these last few slides. So I want to thank our guest speakers, Tanya, Kayla. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences with everyone on the call today, so that we can all learn from each other. So thank you guys. You have been very invaluable in making this happen. I also want to thank those support coordinators and TCM providers that were not able to join us today, but did provide us a lot of detailed information to put this presentation together. So Katie Lovett and Alicia Myers from Stoddard County, and then Pam Denicky from Perry County. All of Kayla, Tanya, Katie, Alicia, and Pam, we could not have put this presentation together without them. So thank you so much. So Stephen, you want to give us a reminder about the survey? Stephen? Okay. I don't know if we've lost Stephen.
Can you hear me now?
Okay, I can hear you now.
I'm sorry. Just want to make sure that everybody does the survey questions at the end of the webinar, because that's very important. Be useful to making these webinars worthy of your time, and help us make sure we need to change anything that will make things better. So just please do that.
So, and again, just an idea. So last month, you guys told us that you want to hear more from support coordinators and you wanted actual takeaways. You wanted something to leave the webinar with that you could use right away. So we use that information in developing this month's webinar. So we are listening, so please fill out that survey. We want to make sure that you have the contact information for getting in touch with Stephen and myself anytime. So I cover mostly the eastern side of the state, so Kirksville, Hannibal, St. Louis area, Rolla, down to the southeast, so Poplar Bluff and Sykeston. So you can reach out to me, email sandy.kaiser, and that is spelled Keyser @dmh.mo.gov, or you can call me at 636-926-1229. Stephen?
Yes, I cover Albany Satellite Office, Kansas City Regional Office, Central Missouri Regional Office, Springfield Office, and Joplin. And I can be reached at 816-889-6920. And then you can reach them by email, Stephen.Taylor@dmh.mo.gov.
So, and lastly, thank you to all of you for joining us today. Great conversation. Love the participation in the chat box. And we will look forward to seeing you guys again next month, March 10th, 1:30 to 2:30. Thanks and have a great day, everybody. Stay warm and safe.
Thanks. Bye.